Oh my gosh, are we rolling? We're rolling. So good. Wait, I'm the one that controls the rolling. Anyway, wah! And all that good stuff, everybody. Hey, how you doing? Hopefully you're doing absolutely peachy keen fantastic, full of the love of the Lord and all that good stuff. Today, I wanted to start a campaign in Dawn of War Dark Crusade in the definitive edition of Dawn of War because, oh my gosh, I love Dawn of War. I really do. It's like one of my favoriteest games. It was the game that actually got me really into like 40K. Well, that and Fire Warrior. I played a bunch of Fire Warrior back in the day. We're good. Normal. You know what I find really funny is if you play this all the way through. Oh, awesome! Hi, hello. If you play this all the way through, it's kind of like, wait, why were they fighting so hard over this particular planet? Like, it doesn't seem like there's like, I don't know. Just doesn't seem like there's that much like strategic value here. Doesn't matter. It's Warhammer. We're doing this for the cool, and I like all of these factions. And so we're gonna talk a little bit about each one of them as you go through. So Chaos is actually one of the factions I played the most in 10th edition when I was playing more, because I really like the way they play. They're like Space Marines, but they had funky stuff going on and magic and weirdness, and I love that sort of stuff. They always kind of remind me of like the primal, like the sort of Contra in a way, in a weird way. Although I think that the like actual chaos, like in canon, is just like kind of pure evil, and that's not really very interesting to me. In my head, I always like make the chaos gods more nuanced because I just think that's much more interesting. But these guys are pretty fun to play in game as well. I rather enjoy their mechanics and the way they function. And you can ascend to demonhood, so that's pretty neat. You like being a big guy? I like being a big guy. I like going around picking people up and going, "Hello, I'm large. Would you like to be my friend?" And they say, "Oh my god, please let me go." I'm like, okay. And then I let them go and they scurry away. Eldar are really cool too. I see. I really enjoy the aesthetic of the Eldar. Maybe some of their coney type heads is a little bit silly sometimes, but I like a lot of the other stuff. I like the Gaelic names are fun, and like just being this really ancient race that knows all this different stuff. That's pretty neat. The problem I tend to have with them is that in lore they basically come off as know-it-all teenagers who don't actually know it all and who are constantly wrong and then constantly failing. To be fair, that is the way they are written rather than the way they should be. Like, because if you read like their codex and stuff, or if you read like all of the lore, they should be way smarter than they actually come off as. But then it's like you read them and it's just like, why are you like this? But they also have a lot of really fun units. Although my personal favorite unit, just for terms of looks, is the Guardians. I just think the Guardians look really cool. Not the best unit to have though. I also love Warp Spiders. Love Warp Spiders. And honestly, all the different units are pretty good. Not a big fan of like the rainbow of colors. I tend to like more, like I would want to paint them as like a little bit more uniform, but that's perfectly fine. We're just playing a video game. Oathway is also one of my favorite craft worlds. Although my real favorite craft world is Ayandin. Ayandin's really cool because they have like diplomatic relations with the Imperium like on a regular basis, and they also have like a bunch of uh spooky constructs that are like ghost peoples, but not really ghost peoples. It's like they take the spirit stone and they put it inside of the Monstar machine, and then the Monster machine. There is something very appealing about the Imperial Guard, just for like the general. We are doing our best to defend the Imperium from all these different threats with the best we can. And I really find that a lot of their novels are actually pretty interesting to read. If you just like military sci-fi and stuff like that, I think they're more interesting to read than Space Marines. The problem with a lot of Space Marines is that they tend to come off as kind of bland and like having similar personalities, except for like in certain books where they're allowed to explore a bit more. Or sometimes like Space Wolves are allowed to do a little bit more, but it's a whole thing. Anyway, I really like this, and I think that the Imperial Guard are cool. When I was playing 10th edition, I sometimes played Imperial Guard on the tabletop simulator, but I played Catgirl Guard because someone uploaded a mod that was like the Makote from Final Fantasy 14. So, like all these different like they give them all different like las guns and like all these different like tanks and stuff like that, and I love that. Regular Imperial Guard as an army, I don't know if I'd ever really collect. Although I have for a very long time now looked at the Kasrkin kill team that came out and been like, okay, maybe I need to get back. Or that one Tempestus Scion team. Those guys are really cool. Although I think Cadians are kind of boring, to be perfectly honest. But like these guys aren't supposed to be Cadians, I don't think. Yeah, the first Cronus regiment. Yeah, I don't think they're actually supposed to be. They look like Cadians because everybody looks like Cadians in these games, but whatever. Not a big deal. The Necrons. Necrons in their old lore, I didn't actually like them as much because in their old lore they were basically just like just trying to kill everything forever. But they kind of had like this weird like jump back and forth where like they didn't have very much lore at first, and then it was third edition when they came out with their new codex and they were like basically evil Terminators. And I'm trying to think it was fourth or fifth where they got the refresh and they had like much more of an Egyptian theme and they were allowed to have much more personality. I like the personality stuff, but I also understand why some people are like they like the Terminator type of stuff. I will say the neck one of the few things that kind of makes me see, I'm not a super big fan of the way they play in this game. They're not like I like all the factions, but like this is like probably one that's like a little bit less of my flavor. The one thing that kind of pushes me towards this, and you'll see as we go on through this, uh, these guys here, have I think one of the most annoying scenarios for beating the stronghold. Each of these races has a stronghold that like, so whatever one you pick, obviously you don't fight that stronghold. You have to fight all the other strongholds, and this one is pretty annoying. It's actually not really that bad if you approach it right. I just have this tendency to like focus all my forces into like one area where I should kind of spread them out more. It's a thing. Well, you'll probably see me do it because I'll be like, "Yes, charge!" and then like everything will be left undefended, and you'll be like, "Oh no, why am I dying?" Because I'm silly like that. But no, I'm not a super big fan of like the old lore where they just like just want to kill everybody. I like newer lore. The Necron dynasty that I made up is basically a bunch of gardeners who are just like tending to like a collection of planets, like a collection of like a couple systems, and they're doing it because they do want to figure out the biotransference thing at some point, but also they just kind of it just like became their obsession. Like, okay, we're just gonna protect these humans and these like other little aliens that are like in this area, and we're just gonna kind of watch them grow, and they just kind of like watch over them and just it's kind of like how they entertain themselves. Because if you're like an ancient, immortal, basically immortal being, not necessarily truly immortal, I guess, but mostly immortal being, like you have to have like something. You have to have a hobby, right? You have to have something to do. So I thought it would be funny if they just really wanted to watch like humans and things like that. You may be wondering, like, you'll see why, but why I skipped that one right now. Space Marines. The Space Marines. Is it just me, or does that look really weird the way that, like that? Why is that so purple? That is that is weird looking. Okay, whatever. Um, the Space Marines, for me, it depends almost entirely on the chapter. Space Marines in theory are cool because it's fun to be like a big guy with like, lots of powers and like, oh yeah, I could just stomp on things. But I would like it if there were Lady Space Marines. I know they're completely irrelevant for this right now, but like I to have both. It, at this point, it's mostly just because I like it doesn't make sense to me that they're not both. Especially like when you go back to this like just a retcon and then it's like then they made it lore, blah blah blah. But honestly, if you're like really into 40k lore, you'd probably know that a lot of 40k lore is just retcons after a while. Retcons from the original stuff, retcons to newer stuff, and retcons to even newer stuff. It's all over the place. But Space Marines are pretty fun to play. I never finished Space Marine 2 because I tend to find that the stoic badass type Space Marine is very boring after a while. I just don't care that much. After a while, it's just like, oh, we're just the best of the best of the best of the best. It's like, I just don't care. Like, if I'm having fun doing it, like, if I'm playing, like, Doom Eternal and I'm jumping around, smashing things, things like that, then I'm real into it. But if it's just like, oh man, I'm so stoic and so cool, I don't really care. Also flat. But then there are other Space Marine characters that, like, go real hard, are really well written. It's kind of like the Horus Heresy, where, like, so much of it is just like vulgar porn. But then there are occasionally these moments where it's like, oh, you actually spent time and made an interesting character. Like, oh, you took time and actually explore this Primarch as a character. Like, the Space Marines as a whole, despite all that story stuff, well, I have spent so much time making my own Space Marine chapter, and it is exactly the stuff I want. So that's one of the cool things. Like you can just make your own thing. I mean, you can kind of do that with any of these. Space Marines are kind of the one where you just see people do a lot. Although usually what they do is just take some random historical thing. They're like, oh yeah, but they're like this, but they're also good at killing. Alright. But whatever. Doesn't matter. Gameplay wise, I like them because they're very straightforward and they're very clean and things like that. And it's just kind of nice. You just kind of whoosh, move forward, crush, and that's good. Um, Space Marine, I don't. I he basically just gets fancier armor. That's like all he gets is big upgrades. A lot of these guys get like more like get very fancy armor, some of these abilities. Turns into a fucking demon. This guy gets turned invisible. So this guy basically, just gets some like fancier armor. I mean, that's kind of like what a lot of them get. Some of them look way cooler than others. I also just have to say, I'm not a huge fan of the Blood Raven's color scheme. That's neither here nor there. Honestly, my favorite like in canon Space Marine chapter, I think, is probably the Spears of the Emperor. I loved that book already, and like obviously my favorite non-canon Space Marine chapter, but like there's a lot of interesting ones in there, and you get some that are very cool. And so overall, they're not too bad. It just depends. They're like all sides of the spectrum because you get really boring, just big man in space armor, stoic, or you get space wolves which are just like wolf, 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 and I'm like so crazy and oh man, I'm drunk, but I'm not actually drunk and blah, 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 blah. I don't do bad. I don't do bad. You can only say so many bad words after a while, Try to be better because sometimes I say many, but yeah, whatever. Space Marine is cool. Or they can be cool, but they're also can be cool. Tau. Now I love Tau in theory. I I played a decent amount of games. I think I played like 10 games or 10 or 11 games with Tau in 10th edition. Tau on the tabletop, I find super boring. I love my big charges. I love charging into things. I love going wah and things like that. The Tau are pretty cool. I really like the idea of like all these different races coming together. I really like that covenant aspect of it, of like humans. There's like these weird psychic bear things, and there's like the brain worms, and there's like the Vespids and the Brood, and like there's like so many different species that are under the Tau Empire, and then they also have the whole thing of like they work with the Baton as well sometimes, and then, of course they both have like different versions of like what's going on because Baton are like, oh yeah, I love the Tau because all I have to do is say something's for the greater good, and they'll just do whatever. And then these guys are like, oh man, I love the Votan. They're so dedicated. It's like very funny. But Tau are one of my favorite factions overall. Like I would still like to collect some of them, but I see. Here's my problem. I like the look of some of the battle suits. I don't like painting them. I think they're kind of boring to paint. And they have some fun tactics with the battle suits, but they're just not my favorite aspect. My favorite aspect of the Tau is like all the different races coming together. And from what I've seen in 10th edition, I could be wrong, of course. I've played 151 games, 10th edition, something like that. Um, but generally, what I've seen from the Tau is that the best way to play them is like Devilfish, Breachers, move up, and then like lots of crisis suits, and maybe some broadside. But people play them a lot of different ways. But not my favorite on the tabletop. I really like their lore. Elemental Council was pretty interesting. That was a really good book. I also really like Farsight. Farsight's one of my favorite characters in 40k. Although the Farsight books basically paint Tau is a horrible dystopia, which I guess you could argue they're kind of supposed to be, but like I don't know, it always comes off as a little weird when you compare it to like the Imperium, like or like Chaos, or like a lot of these others like right next to him. It's like it just doesn't come off as that bad. Um, but yeah, I don't know. They are pretty interesting overall. Now, the bestest boys. I love orcs. Orcs are awesome. Orcs are just so much fun. I love their silliness. I love their big DACA. I love being lots of Orcanauts. I love having lots of big mech type things and just like all these crazy inventions. I love shock attack guns. I love shooting snotlings inside of like people's armor and having them explode and like having both the armor and things explode. I love just building bigger and bigger deck. I love red ones to go fast though. I love all of that. It Orcs are just so much fun to me, and I like that they're goofy. Sometimes I can't help but think that 40K for what it is takes itself a little too seriously sometimes. Like if you just like look at it, it's like some of it is very hard to like take all that seriously because like even in context there's a lot of stuff where it's just kind of like do you see what's actually on screen right now? It's like, I mean, but that's perfectly fine because it's supposed to be fun. And but orcs to me really embody that, and orcs are just there, and you're just having a good time because you just get into a good scram. That's why I love orcs. When I'm in a more complicated, planny type mood, it would probably be chaos or Eldar because I really love. I mean, honestly, I in tenth of what I realized is I actually really love the way Drakari play. I love the like lots of transports moving up fast, jumping out, shooting and like raiding and then like jumping back in and like moving around. Like that was a lot of fun to do. Then you can still get some really fun melee units. Um Chaos, it's really fun to like the idea of like tapping into like some fundamental force of reality and like bringing it forth. Of course, their fundamental version of reality is, oh, it's just spooky skulls. Oh man, demons are just there. Oh, lick my eyeball, and I'm like, oh, that's weird. But for this, we have a choice to make here. Now, basically, the choice I'm really going down to is orcs, Eldar, chaos. Those are the three I think I would have the most fun with. But I would play any of them. They can all be a good deal. So what I'm gonna do, I don't know, my videos get like whatever amount of views, they're all over the place. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to post this after I've talked about all these factions, and I'm going to have you guys tell me what army you want me to play, and all that. And know that while we're playing, I am going to give a bunch of lore info dumps because that is this Warhammer is one of my obsessions. I am obsessy spaghetti with the Warhammer lore. I love the Warhams. I love the Warhams so much. It is big part of brain heart. Heart brain power. Good? You decide. The next epic rap battles of Warhammer. Yeah, so there are a couple that I'm like more leaning towards. But basically, I'm just gonna look at the comments and just gonna see it, and if you want to give a reason for why you think I should play a particular faction, awesome possum. I'll look into it. Um, and we'll go from there. And honestly, I'm probably just gonna play a bunch of this in my spare time anyway. So that might also influence my decision. But mostly, I want to leave it to you guys and see what you guys say. Um, and yeah, just let me know what you think, what you want me to play, and why you want me to play something. And if you want to as well, you can tell me which one is the best and which one's the worst. Because for me, for campaign, I actually think Space Marines might be the most boring. Actually, no, Necrons are the most boring. I just don't think they're very interesting. All the stuff that I really like about Necrons is kind of like more recent lore additions. Things like Infinite and Divine and like the older stuff I just don't find as interesting. The idea of just like, oh, we're just want to purge this planet of life is just I don't know, it's just kind of boring, right? But, we're here to stop everybody because we're cool space elves and look at me, I'm a lady leader. So we have representation and sword and representation. Oh my god, so powerful. Or here, I'm a big bald man, so I have representation of alopecia. Powerful. Or we's the best and we's the biggest. Very good. I love you for that. I pat your head because you are a good boy. You're such a good boy. Yeah. So go ahead. Tell me what you think I should play. And have a great one. And I hope you know that I love you and God loves you and bye-bye. I love you. Bye. Have a great one. And don't forget to vote. Oh, also, pat my head. Send me head pats in the mail. Just send a hand in the mail.